Chapter 10, Summer's Lead. It turned out to be harder to make the appointment with Summer than I'd expected. For the first time in my life, Mom wanted me to stay by her side all day. "I don't want you running around Fun Jungle all by yourself," she explained as we headed to Monkey Mountain. "It's too dangerous." "Not during visiting hours, it's not," I replied. "No one's going to try to hurt me with 1,000 tourists around." In truth, I wasn't completely sure this was true, but meeting up with Summer seemed worth the risk. "It's not long term, just until security finds whoever tried to hurt you last night." "That might take weeks. What am I supposed to do? Hang out in your office all day?" "Maybe." Come on, Mom. You let me be by myself all the time in Africa, and there were tons of dangerous animals there. Mom grabbed my hand and stopped walking, wanting me to pay complete attention to what she had to say. "This is different, Theodore. I knew you could handle yourself in Africa because animals aren't really that dangerous. They rarely try to harm people unless they've been provoked, and even on those occasions, they're not that hard to scare away. But humans are different. If a human really wants to hurt you, he won't give up that easily. He'll keep coming after you. He'll keep trying new tactics until he finds one that works. What you've gotten involved in here isn't a game. This is dangerous, and you need to behave accordingly." "Okay," I said. I meant it too. Until that point, I hadn't realized how worried Mom was about me, and her words got me more concerned about my safety as well. But from my point of view, meeting up with Summer to pursue our investigation was looking out for my safety. Mom might have believed we could trust Fun Jungle's security force to find out who'd been behind the Mamba incident, but I didn't. First, they hadn't seemed too intent on investigating in the first place. Second, they weren't a real police force. Buck Grassley might have had some law enforcement experience, but most of his people didn't. Many didn't seem that much more competent than Large Marge, who couldn't find a criminal if he was muggling her in broad daylight. So it made sense that the best way to protect myself was to find the bad guy before he tried to hurt me again. If Summer had a lead, it ought to be investigated, and unfortunately, there didn't seem to be anyone willing or capable to follow up on it besides us. Of course, I couldn't tell Mom any of this. I hadn't even told her that I planned to meet up with Summer again. She would have argued that our investigation stood a better chance of getting me into more trouble than getting me out of it. Moms are overprotective like that, even mine. So I pretended to be the perfect kid all morning. I went to work with Mom and stayed in her office, reading a book while she worked on her computer. Well, I tried to read a book. The truth was, I could barely concentrate. I was eager to see Summer again and find out what her big lead was. And I had to be constantly on the alert for a chance to sneak away. I'd never have time to pass so slowly in my life. Worse, Mom spent an unusual amount of time in her office that morning. Most days, she'd have been working with the gorillas in one way or another, taking care of them in her private quarters, or maybe observing them out in their yard. But not that morning. She just sat at her computer, didn't even take a bathroom break. And as the minute hand slowly crept toward 11, I was beginning to think I'd have to text Summer to say our meeting was off, when I got an idea. One of Mom's innovations at Monkey Mountain was the camera grid. There were dozens of cameras in the exhibits, which allowed her, or any primatologist, to monitor the animals from their computers. There were 30 in the gorilla habitat alone. There wasn't a place the apes could go and not be recorded. This was exciting for Mom, as it was the first time she'd ever been able to watch her subjects without them knowing she was watching. As much as Mom could fade into the background in the wild, the gorillas never completely forgot she was there, and that would inevitably have some slight effect on their behavior. But the gorillas didn't know about the cameras. Obviously, being in a zoo affected their behavior too, but the exhibit at Fun Jungle was so well designed, Mom claimed it was as close to the wild as she could get without going back to Africa. There was also security cameras in the building, and all those could be accessed from the researchers' computers as well. I'd known about all of these before Buck Grassley had mentioned them the previous night, although I hadn't been aware that every building at Fun Jungle was as well wired as Monkey Mountain, or that all of the cameras fed into a central security bank. Sometimes when the gorillas were close to the glass of their exhibits, Mom used the security cameras to get better views of them. Mom shared her office with another primatologist who was at the vet lab with a sick squirrel monkey that day. He'd left his computer on. I got on it and started surfing through the camera feeds. It didn't take long to find a park guest breaking the rules. In fact, I had several moronic rule breakers to choose from. An obese man was blowing raspberries at the macaques. A skinny woman was trying to get a vegetarian Colapis monkey to accept a hot dog, and a father was actually dangling his 5-year-old daughter over a railing in a misguided attempt to let her pet a baboon. Thankfully, the baboon was smarter than the father and kept its distance. But the winners of the Most Annoying Visitors Award were a trio of teenagers. They were banging on one of the gorillas exhibit's big plate glass windows, riling the apes. Of course, there were plenty of signs telling them not to do this for fear of upsetting the animals, but they obviously wanted to upset the animals. They laughed and howled as the gorillas reacted to their idiocy. Tembo, the silverback male, stood on his hind legs, making aggressive postures while the female and children leapt about, agitated. A lot of tourists had gathered to watch. Most seemed to realize the teens were doing something wrong, but no one had the nerve to tell those jerks to stop. No one but my mother, that is. "Hey, Mom," I said, "look at this." She glanced over and was instantly filled with rage. Mom never liked to see any animals being tormented, but she was extremely protective of her gorillas. As I suspected, she immediately snapped to her feet and stormed toward the door. "Stay here," she told me. "I'll be right back." According to the official Fun Jungle policy, Mom wasn't supposed to get involved in incidences like this any more than I was. She was supposed to call security, but she never did. I found it interesting that Mom didn't trust security to handle a couple of rude teenagers, but still thought that they could find the criminal who came after me the night before. I waited 30 seconds after she'd left. Then she whipped the apology I'd already written for her out of my book, set it on her desk, and slipped out the door. As I scurried toward the exit, I heard Mom giving hell at the top of her lungs. At the risk of being caught, I doubled back and peered into the viewing room. The crowd of tourists had grown even larger, eagerly watching Mom berate the teenagers for their behavior. Though Mom wasn't physically an imposing woman, she could be really scary when she got angry. The teens cowered under her gaze, looking like they were facing an escaped lion rather than a ticked-off scientist. "You think it's funny upsetting these animals?" Mom roared. "How'd you like it if you were trapped in a room and Tembo was banging on your windows? Because we could arrange that." The teenagers whimpered apologies and accused one another of having started the trouble. Mom had broken them up quickly. It wouldn't be long before she was headed back to her office. I raced for the exit, and my meeting with Summer. "It's about time," she said as I came around the dumpsters. "I thought you were blowing me off." "Sorry," I gasped, out of breath. I'd run all the way across the park to get there. I had to wait until my mom... "Relax, I'm just busting your chops," Summer grinned. She was wearing a t-shirt, a baseball cap, and sunglasses, rather than one of her trademark pink outfits. She was so well disguised that if she hadn't been waiting in our secret spot, I might not have recognized her. "Did you have to ditch your bodyguards again?" I asked. "Yeah, but not the way I did yesterday. They're still so peeved at me, there's no way they would have even brought me to the park today." "Don't they work for you?" "No, they work for my father. And if they want to keep me under lock and key all day, all they have to do is claim there's a security risk." So I had to give them the slip early. I ducked out of the house before breakfast. My bodyguard's sitting in the hallway outside my room, so I went out the window and down the trellis. One of our cooks gave me a ride here in return for some autograph stuff he can sell on eBay. Summer twirled in her outfit, mimicking a fashion model. "This is how I dress on the down low. I've been here all morning. No one's even recognized me yet. It's been awesome. I even had to pay for my own ticket to get in." She was so excited. It sounded as though she were talking about having gone swimming with sharks rather than merely visiting a theme park. All I could figure was, for the glitz and glamour her life appeared to have, Summer had so few normal experiences that she found them incredible. Going a whole morning without being recognized seemed to be the greatest thing she could imagine. "How do you know they won't think you've been kidnapped?" I asked. Summer shrugged nonchalantly. "I left a note." "That makes two of us," I said. "We ought to get going then. Pretty soon, we'll have the National Guard looking for us." We slipped out of the dumpster area and headed quickly through the park, although not so quickly as to draw attention to ourselves. "Where are we going?" I asked. "To see Larry the Lizard," she replied. "Ugh, I hate to break this to you, but he's not real." "Not the cartoon character, doofus. The guy who plays him. He's our lead." "How?" "Remember yesterday at the Emporium, I said we could tell something about who killed Henry from how they'd killed him?" "Yeah, but you never got the chance to tell me what... You didn't figure it out? Dude, it's obvious." I've had a lot going on. Someone did try to kill me last night. Summer grinned, and I realized that once again she was teasing me. Okay, I'll give you that. Here's the deal. Whoever did it had to know something about hippos. Not necessarily. The way they killed Henry was awfully simple. It wasn't. Think about it. If you just went up to about anyone and said, "How would you kill a hippopotamus?" how many of them would say, "Give it a peritontus"? I'll bet most people don't even know what a peritontus is. A normal person would have shot Henry or poisoned him or stuck some live wires in his pool and electrocuted him. But to feed him a bunch of filled jacks to poke holes in his intestine, would you have known how to kill a hippo? I felt embarrassed again, although this time, instead of making me seem naive, Summer made me look stupid. How could I have thought of that? No, I admitted. And you're Tarzan Jr.? You grow up with hippos in your swimming hole? Whoever killed Henry knew they're hippos, and not many people do. So this was probably an inside job. You think one of the keepers did it? Summer shrugged. There's a good chance, I guess. Then why are we talking to Larry the Lizard? Background. We need to... Summer trailed off in mid-sentence and suddenly veered to the side, yanking me behind a topiary bush shaped like Eleanor elephant. She signaled me to stay still, then cautiously peered out from behind it. What's wrong? I whispered, worried. Is that the killer? Worse, she replied. Paparazzi. I peeked out beneath the topiary elephant's armpit and saw a small cluster of heavy-set men with multiple cameras strung around their necks stampede past. Luckily, they had another target in mind. A pitcher from the Houston Astros and his movie star girlfriend had just come through the front gate. Leeches, Summer growled. They've probably been lying in wait all morning. She made sure the cameras were all pointing away from her, then dragged me off the opposite direction. We were now going back the way we'd come, which meant we had to circle all the way around Hippo River to get where we'd be going in the first place, wherever that was. Summer was too annoyed to tell me. Instead, she stormed along, grousing about photographers. People tip them off, random people. Someone at the park notices me, they call a magazine, the magazine gives them like $100 and sends the jackals down here. You try to do something normal, like go to dinner or a movie or even get ice cream, and the next thing you know, there's 1,000 lights flashing in your face and all these greasy guys are showing up against you, calling you names to make you angry. And within 30 minutes, there's the last flattering pictures of you possible all over the internet, and 1 million chat rooms are talking about whether or not you're fat. It's the worst thing ever. Yeah, I said. Back when I was in Congo, kids our age were dying of malaria and malnutrition, and half their families have been killed in the war. But they'd always say, "Thank God no one's taken pictures of us against our will." Summer wheeled on me. For a moment, I thought I'd really screwed up and ruined our friendship before it even started. But then Summer broke into a big smile as though she appreciated me giving her crap. Oh, you're right. I'm a pampered snob. But if you think the paparazzi's no big deal, let's see what you think when you have to deal with them. How's that supposed to happen? The big shindig for Carnivore Canyon tomorrow night? Yeah. It's only like the biggest party there's ever been around here. Want to be my date? I didn't answer right away. I wanted to. The moment she asked, my immediate impulse was to scream, yes! But it all seemed wrong somehow. Summer McCracken couldn't have been inviting me. It had to be a joke. She was teasing me again. Summer suddenly burst into laughter, and I realized I was blushing. Whoa, she said, it's not a date, okay? My dad's coming back to town for it, and I thought you'd want to meet him. Oh, I said, trying not to feel too deflated. Of course, that'd be great. We'll try to get Daddy away from everyone and tell him about Henry being murdered, she explained. You haven't told him yet. He's halfway around the world and he's busy. Plus, I figure if I tell him solo, he might think I've been drinking my cough syrup. But if you're there to back me up, maybe he'll buy it. So what do you say? Want to come? Yeah, of course, I said. Though it seemed to me that someone as invested in his daughter's life, like J.J. McCracken, would give her the benefit of the doubt if she told him his mascot had been killed. I wondered if Summer was keeping our investigation a secret so she could play detective, but then got upset at myself for doubting her. After all, she was offering to tell her father the truth and getting me into a swanky party to boot. Looking for ulterior motives to explain her behavior wasn't cool. I guess I was still having trouble believing someone like Summer really wanted to be friends with me. I'm not kidding about the paparazzi, she told me. We'll try to avoid them, but they'll be everywhere, like mosquitoes. You'll end up on the internet. I shrugged, trying to make it seem like I didn't think it was such a big deal, but down inside, I have to admit, I was a little excited by the prospect. I can handle it. We'll see. Why are we going to talk to Larry the Lizard? I asked. Summer smacked her forehead. Right, totally forgot. Okay, the way I found him was I was trying to get some info on all the hippo keepers, to see if anyone had a grudge against Henry. I'd heard he'd attack one of them, right? So my father's got this whole database on his computer with everyone at Fun Jungle's info. That's how you got my cell number? Exactly. And your dad lets you use it? Of course not. He has no idea I use it. But then, that's his fault for using my birthday as his access code. Anyhow, I found out there's 4 keepers who work with the hippos, but they all seem cool. Each has like 15 years experience with hippos. The guy who got bit, he did hippo research for 2 years in Botswana. That doesn't mean he didn't kill Henry. I know, but they've all been doing this a long time. Sooner or later, a keeper's got to expect to get bitten by something, right? That's the name of the game. If you want a safe job, you become a secretary or something. You don't work with hippos. It doesn't make sense that one of them would have killed him for revenge. They could have had another reason. Possibly, but get this. While I was going through the database, I came across this other guy, Charlie O'Connor. Did you ever hear that Henry was in a circus before he came here? Yeah. And that when he was here, he bit a clown? I heard he bit 3. Well, Charlie's one of them. So I figured maybe I should talk to him. The guy not only knows Henry's background, but he's got a motive. You think a clown would kill for revenge, but not a zookeeper? Absolutely. Clowns are freaks. Plus, this guy didn't choose to work with animals. He just got attacked by one. That, my friend, is a recipe for revenge. So you just called him up? Sure, he answered right away. Of course, the caller ID told him JJ McCracken was calling. And everyone answers when my father calls. Was he disappointed when he found out it was you? I didn't tell him it was me. I said I was from my father's office and we were looking into Henry's death. And the first thing he said to me, I didn't do it, but I know who did. I was so surprised. I almost tripped right over my own feet. He does? Who? I don't know. He wouldn't tell me on the phone. He was all paranoid. Like maybe he's afraid the killer's going to come after him next. That's why we're going to see him. How do you know it's not another trap? Summer's step faltered ever so slightly. She'd been so proud of herself for getting the lead, it apparently hadn't occurred to her that it might have been a setup. But then she shrugged it off, as she seemed to do with so many things. If it is, then I guess we'll know something important. What's that? That Charlie's the real killer. She grinned, thinking this was funny. I didn't. After all, no one had tried to kill her yet. But before I could point this out, she yanked me down a small alley between 2 exhibits. There, a tunnel plunged into the side of the building, the entrance to the mascot dressing rooms. There weren't any doors because most of the costumes were too bulky to fit through. Zelda Zebra was sauntering in ahead of us. Here goes nothing, Summer said, and slipped inside.